guys, so I'm here to finally do my birth story with Miss Mia. She is a little over 2 weeks old now, and we are doing great, but I want to do our birth story first, and then I will do our postpartum update in a different video. But she's here, she's eating right now, almost done, but thought I'd get started. So, as you all probably, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw that Miss Mia made her grand entrance a week before my induction. I was actually 36 weeks, and it was kind of a quick at-home birth, which was not what we were planning at all. Very unexpected. So I know everyone has had a lot of questions on what happened. So let's get started. On August 23rd, it was a Thursday, I had gone to the doctor's because I woke up and wasn't feeling very good. I, checked my sugars because I thought, well, maybe my sugar's a little off, and it was fine. And I ended up then checking my blood pressure just because I was like, well, maybe my blood pressure's a little off. And it was high. It was 140/90 something, which is right over that high range. They'd want you under 140/90. So I was like, all right, well, that's happened to me during the pregnancy. Usually it would go down within an hour. So I was like, all right, I'll watch it. And it didn't go down. I then took the boys to school. I went to Target because we needed a few things. And when I got back, it was still high, and it had been like 3 hours at that point. So I did call the doctor, and they wanted me to be checked. So obviously I had to go in, and it was funny, I had just been at the doctor's the day before for my weekly appointment. So I went in, and I think I called around 9 o'clock, and I had an appointment for like 10. And on our way to the doctor's, and we only live like 10 minutes from the doctor's, I started having contractions, and they were about every 5 minutes on the way to the doctor's. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And when I got to the office, I'm checking in, and the nurse, the receptionist, was asking me how I was doing, and I'm like, I'm actually having some pretty intense contractions. She's like, yeah, I can see it in your face. Like, it's definitely bothering you today. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of weird. So it turned out that the doctor I was going to be seeing, who was squeezing me in to be checked, was so behind. She was like running an hour behind. So one of the other doctors who I had seen the day before said, you know what, let me just see Erin. I saw her yesterday. Let me just see her. Odds are probably just going to send her to labor and delivery. So I went and saw him, and sure enough, he was like, I don't like the fact that your contractions are so close. He's like, and your blood pressure is high. So he's like, we're not equipped to monitor you like that here. So off to labor and delivery I went, it is literally not even a quarter of a mile from the doctor's office to the hospital. So Ed took me to the hospital because he came to the doctor's with me because we had a feeling I probably would be sent to labor and delivery. So we went to labor and delivery. She checked me. I was 2 centimeters at around 11:30. This was in the morning, obviously. So I was about 2 centimeters. I was like just at 2 centimeters. And yeah, my contractions were about every 3 to 5 minutes, so they were pretty close. They were intense, but I was tolerating them very well. I didn't feel like I needed anything. They were just very, very irritating at that point. Some were really uncomfortable, but most of them were just very irritating. So about an hour and a half later, she checked me again, and I was just at 3 centimeters. Like, really, like, I was still kind of 2, but it was mostly a 3 at that point. So she, we did more fluids. They did an IV at that point, and they pushed some fluids. I had 2 bags of fluid. Ed left, actually, during this time to go get the boys from school because somebody needed to pick them up, or needed to pick Jeffrey up, or pick Robert up and then get Jeffrey off the bus. And one of our friends was coming over at 3 to stay here with the boys because we weren't sure what time my mom was going to get home, and she was not answering her phone. Turned out she actually got out of work at 3, so she came home at 3:30. And our friend was willing to go get the boys for us, but we had the car seats. We had my car because we didn't think we'd be there that long. Honestly, we thought we'd be monitored for a couple hours and be released. So she came here, and then Ed came back to the hospital. And at this point, it was almost 4 o'clock. The doctor came in and checked me again, and I had not changed. And so I hadn't changed in a few hours. I was still just at 3. Like, what she said, it was 0 change. So at that point, she was like, oh, your contractions, I was having them like every 10 to 20 minutes. So they did space themselves out. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, she wanted to keep me overnight because of my history. Because she was afraid my blood pressure would go up. Now, mind you, when we got to the hospital, my blood pressure was actually normal and stayed normal. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, the contractions have died down. They're not painful. I'm like, I kind of just want to go home. I'm like, look, we're only like 12 minutes from the hospital. I'll come back if something changes. And she was like, okay. And like, she even had done blood work and everything came back fine. She wanted me to have blood work again the next day, and I had a non-stress test planned for Friday. So I was like, you know what? Why don't you just put orders in and I'll have some blood work done after my non-stress test or before, whatever. And she was like, all right, that's fine. She's perfectly fine with that. She said, just don't miss your appointment. I'm like, nope, I won't. So we get home. It was like 5, 6 o'clock at this point by the time we were discharged at home. And, you know, I did everything normally. I put the boys to bed. Like, I did everything. I was fine. The contractions at this point, by the time we got home, they were like every 20 to 30 minutes, which if you've dealt with contractions before, that's really not bad. In my doctor's office, they told me not to be worried unless it's every 5 minutes for an hour and a half. So they were 20 to 30 minutes apart. They were fine. I was like, you know, they're probably going to die down in a little while. I was drinking a ton of water. I was hoping I could get them to go away with water because usually that helps to get, you know, hydrate a lot. So I put the boys to bed, and Ed had gone to sleep too because he had to get up and work. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay on the couch. I was like, I'm going to lay on the couch. One, my back was really killing me, so I kind of wanted to use like ice packs and heating pads. And I was like, it'll be easier to like put the heating pad on the back of the couch and just like lean into it because it would help stay it in place. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do that. One, it would be easier to get off of the couch. Our bed is high. It's, you know, high off the ground. So I was like, oh, to get up and pee, I've drank so much. They put so much fluid into me. I'm going to be peeing all night long. So I really didn't want to have to get off of that bed 8 million times. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to stay on the couch. So I was on the couch. Ed left for work around 10:30. And he came out, obviously, because I was on the couch, so he saw me, and he asked me how I was doing. I was like, oh, they're still every 20 to 30 minutes. And he goes, really? They haven't died down? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm hoping maybe they will, like, soon. I said, but, you know, I'm like, I'm hoping I can get some sleep. And he's like, do you want me to stay home? And I said, no, you should go to work. Like, I'm like, what are you going to do for me? Like, just go to work. I'm like, I'll talk to you in the morning. So all night long, they were 20 to 30 minutes apart. Again, no change. Some were more painful than others, but none where I was like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. I was just really tired by the time the boys woke up at like 5. I had not slept very well. There were a few points where I did have them every 30 minutes for a couple hours, so I was able to sleep a little longer. You know, I'd get like a 20-minute nap and then I'd wake up and have the contraction, and then by the time you fall back asleep. So I had a few cat naps, but so super tired. So yeah, the boys woke me up at 5, still the same. And at about 5:30 I called in and I was like, you know what, you know, I figured I'd give him an update on what was going on. And I was like, you know what, I'm like, I don't feel like anything has changed since we were at, you know, since I've gotten home. I said, but they're not any better. I said, which is weird. One would think that they would have gotten better or not as intense. And I was able to still walk around at this point. I was walking around fine. I may have to stop during some of the contractions if I was doing something, but I was still talking through them. I, you know, was walking through most of them. A couple of them I would have to stop. But it was mostly her position. It was just really uncomfortable. And it was just, during the contraction, your body, you know, gets so intense that I was like, you know what, let me just stop moving. And so I called him and said, you know what, why not? He was going to be home before I had to take the boys to school. I said, why don't you come with me, we'll take the boys to school, and then just go right to the hospital. I said, because I think I should be checked. I said, I didn't think I was in labor at that point, but I was like, I feel like something has changed, so maybe we should just go get checked. And he was like, okay, no biggie. We had a feeling that was probably going to happen Friday anyways. Or at least I would have been checked while I was at the doctor's, having my non-stress test. But my appointment wasn't until like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I was like, I don't think I should wait that long. Something was telling me I just shouldn't wait that long. So our plan was to take the boys to school and then go to labor and delivery. My mom at this point had woken up. She was still living here. She just moved out. But she was still living here. So she got up and, you know, obviously asked me how I was doing. And I told her, and she's like, all right. She's like, well, I'm going to hop in the shower because she had to go to work later. She hops in the shower. And when she got out, it was just about 6 o'clock. I had a really good contraction at that point. And I was like, you know what? Like, my back is just killing me from these contractions all night long because I was having a lot of back labor. I guess you would call it back labor. The contractions were a lot in my back. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to hop in the shower and just let the heat just, you know, let the water just hit my back. And maybe that'll just, like, loosen it up a little bit and make it feel a little better just to get through the next, like, couple of hours. And she was like, okay. She's like, no problem. She's like, I got the boys. No biggie. So I get in the shower and I'm in there for, like, about 15 minutes. It was about 6:15 when I got on all fours in the shower and had such a contraction that I screamed out, and my mom came running from the living room. She came from this room all the way into the back bathroom and was like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I said, yeah, that one was pretty bad. I'm like, I think something just changed. And she said, okay. I'm like, why don't you call Ed and tell him he needs to come home, like, now? I think we need to go to the hospital soon. And she's like, okay. She's like, you want me to take the boys to school? I'm like, yeah, I think you're going to have to take them to school and we're going to go to the hospital. And she was like, okay, no biggie. So I got out of the shower. A few minutes later, she had called Ed and she had come back in and said, you know, he's almost done. He was, you know, finishing up a few things, or he was picking up his last can or two, and he was really close. Like, he said he would be done within, like, you know, 15, 20 minutes. So I was like, okay, no biggie, no big deal. So I get out of the shower. I think I was getting out of the shower at this point, and I was still on all fours on the floor drying off because that was just the most comfortable position at that point. And the contractions were probably maybe every 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, which again, I had had those the day before, but these ones were pretty painful. I was really, really uncomfortable. So they went, if you're keeping track, at 6 o'clock, I had, right around 6, I had a contraction, and then I had another one at 6:15. So that was about 15 minutes. And then they literally at 6:15 went to, like, every 3 to 4 minutes. So it changed really quick. So I got dried off and I went into the bedroom and I crawled from the bathroom to the bedroom because, excuse me, I just couldn't stand up because the contractions were coming so quickly and so painfully, and that was just, like, the only way I was comfortable. So I went into the bedroom because I had left my clothes in there, and I was getting dressed, and they were so bad, and I was, like, screaming during each of them. And I could hear Jeffrey yelling. He's at the repeating phase. If you guys don't know, he has autism, so we're at that repeating phase. So he was repeating my screams and, like, laughing about it. He thought it was funny that he was repeating me, not understanding that I was in pain. And Robert was being so cute. He was like, Mommy, do you need anything? Do you need the bucket? Because I said I felt sick. So he was, like, going to get the bucket for me and got me a pillow. He thought I was going to lay on the ground. He was being so, so cute. And my mom was there too, obviously. She was, you know, trying to make me comfortable and getting anything I needed. And she got my bag ready, and we had it, like, on the table waiting for Ed to come. And at about 6:30, I was dressed, but I started crawling I was like, you know what? I'm like, find out where Ed is. I said, because I think I'm going to start going downstairs to wait for him. Because I was like, I'm going to have to get downstairs. She said, okay. And Ed said that he was leaving the plant. So his work is about 2 miles from our house. So it's not far away. As I was crawling, my mom's like, are you all right? Because she could tell I was just in so much pain. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make it down the stairs. I'm like, we're on the 3rd floor. I'm going to make down 2 flights of stairs. I don't think I can do it. I'm like, and I don't think Ed can you know, carry me down. I'm like, I think you're going to have to call 911. And then I literally had another contraction, and I'm like, yeah, you need to call 911. So she calls 911, and as she's telling like, she literally had her phone in her hand because she had just talked to Ed a couple minutes ago. And she said she was giving the dispatcher our address, and I let out a scream. I had such a contraction. My water broke, and her head crowned at the same time. And I said that I, like, screamed it at my mom. I'm like, my water just broke, and she crowned. And my mother's like, holy crap. So she tells the dispatcher. I was at the trash. I had made it about 10 feet from our room. And when this happened, I literally rolled over. I was right at the edge of the kitchen. I rolled over and, you know, to get on my back. And I'm pulling my pants down because I'm like, she's coming. Like, I'm not going to be able to stop it. And as I did this and was pulling my pants down, I had another contraction and I screamed. And apparently Ed had been downstairs. He was waiting for me downstairs in the car, and he was like wondering why the heck I wasn't coming downstairs if I needed to go to the hospital. So he's coming up the stairs, and he was rounding to get to the last, you know, he was coming up and rounding the last staircase, and he heard me scream and came booking up the stairs and kicked the door in to see me in the other room. Robert pointed and said, "The baby's coming," to see her head coming out. It was so quick. So I had the first contraction, I broke my water, and she started crowning. And then the second contraction, her whole head came out in the rest of the water. And then my mom was on the phone with dispatcher, and who was amazing, and told my mom exactly what to do. At this point, I heard the sirens because the fire station is actually like a half a mile from our house. So they got the call and were, you know, on their way quickly. So I heard them. As I heard the sirens, I'm like, oh my God, like, are they going to get here in time? Because her shoulders need to come out next. And I remember the boys, well, Jeffrey's shoulders came out fine, but Robert's the doctor needed to help him out a little bit with the shoulders. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, she's going to have the same issue. Like, are they going to get here in time before I have another contraction and need to push her shoulders out? And as I'm thinking this, I had another contraction, and literally I felt her just slide right out of me. It was amazing. And then Ed went to go tell them where we were, because obviously we're in an apartment complex. It is actually, oh, sorry, my phone is like, or my camera's like popping up messages at me. Hold on, I'm gonna reposition this. So anyways, he wanted to show, you know, let them know it's easier to see a human than it is to see a little, oh, we're gonna get mad, see a little apartment number, you know, the building number that's, you know, like this big. So he goes to tell them. He went downstairs, and Robert went on the porch and he was yelling at the firefighters, "The baby's up here." And sure enough, they came running up the stairs, and they helped. Her legs were still in the process of coming out as the firefighter, like, actually, you know, got down there to see what was going on. And she was breathing. She was fine. She let out a cry for us. And then my placenta came out, and it was over. It was like she was out by 6:44, and the placenta came out at 6:45. It was so quickly. If you look at the timeline, like, it changed to where I knew something was wrong at 6:15, and she was out at 6:45. So a half an hour. Like, amazing. I am still in shock that it happened. I felt perfectly fine afterwards, because the firefighter asked me, he's like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, I actually feel amazing. Like, if you guys have been following this pregnancy, it was my hardest. I was the sickest. And towards the end, it was just miserable. And I kid you not, it was like, as soon as she was out, all of that yuckiness I felt came out too. Not that I'm saying she's yucky, but I'm just saying it literally just came right out of me, and I was perfectly fine. I actually stood up after they checked and made sure everything was fine with both of us. And I got into the chair that they use to get you down the stairs. I stood up and put myself in the chair. It was perfectly fine. Once we got down the stairs, I helped get into the gurney to go into the ambulance. Like, I actually felt fine. I cannot tell you how amazing I felt after giving birth. Considering we planned on having an induction, and I was planning on having an epidural, it was amazing. I mean, the pain, like I said, the pain was intense for that half hour, but it wasn't bad. Like, it was over so quickly that it was just awesome. The boys did really good. Jeffrey kind of was like in his own little world over in the living room when it was happening. And then once the firefighters came, he was like coming to check out what everybody was doing. But they both really weren't like upset that I was in so much pain or that the baby was here. Robert was so excited the firefighters were here. And then when we left, as I was getting, you know, situated in the ambulance and downstairs, Ed helped my mom get the boys, or my mom got the boys ready for school, and then he helped her get them in the car before he left to come to the hospital with me. A baby girl came with me in the ambulance. And the boys were a little upset to say bye to me because Jeffrey saw them put me in the ambulance. So he wanted to come in, and he came and said bye to me and gave me a kiss, and he was very upset to leave Mommy. Which, I mean, let's face it, it's a little traumatic to see a parent get put in an ambulance. So he was a little upset. He had a little tough time at drop-off, which once I got to the hospital, I sent their teachers a message, which I had sent one to each of them earlier in the morning when, I think it was at like 5:30, just to let them know, I was in labor and delivery the day before. I'm going to be going back. I've been very uncomfortable, and the boys have been seeing me uncomfortable because they kept asking if I was okay. So I wanted to let them know that they might be a little off because the last 24 hours had been kind of crazy. So once I got to the hospital and got situated, I actually, I sent them another message and let them know what happened in case the boys were upset. This is why. And, if my husband had to come get them during the day, he would. And Jeffrey's teacher said that he was a little upset when he got dropped off, but then was perfectly fine the rest of the day. And Robert was perfectly fine too, which is great. So I ended up having a unmedicated home birth, which was amazing and definitely not planned, but I'm so happy that everything was fine. She is absolutely perfect. Let me turn her around so you guys can see her. I know I showed her in a video the other day, but here, can you show? Oh, you're beautiful. She's absolutely perfect. She was 6 pounds, 13 ounces, and 19.5 inches long, which is the exact same size that Robert was. She was born on the day I was 36 weeks, so she was exactly 4 weeks early. Perfectly fine. Her, because I had the gestational diabetes, they checked her sugars for the first 24 hours. And her first sugar, once we got to the hospital, which was, by the time they checked it, she was about an hour old. And it was low. It wasn't like dangerously low, but it was a little low once she nursed, which was like 10, 15 minutes later. They checked it an hour after that. And she was perfectly fine. And she has had no sugar issues since. But yeah, so she was perfectly fine. She was a little jaundice on day 2. Went under the lights for like 12 hours and it was fine after that. So she is absolutely gorgeous. We love her to death. Her name is Mia Elizabeth, and she is just the perfect little girl. Huh. You're like, I'm trying to poop. That's what she's doing. She's scrunching up because she needs to poop. Huh. But yeah. Oh, you're going to get upset? Oh, I know. But other than that, it was a perfect... I really couldn't have asked for a faster. I mean, I know if you think about it, I was in labor for like probably almost 20 hours if you count when it started before I got to the doctor's office. But other than that, it was perfectly fine. And when I told the doctor, I saw the doctor I had had the night before. She actually was still there when I was admitted. And she was like, I told you you should have stayed. I said this might happen. I'm like, but you also said it was probably going to stop. And it did not. And then the next morning, one of the older doctors was on call. Or, you know, it was his day. And so when he came in, he's like, I hear you have a story. And when I told him about the timeline and how quickly it happened, he's like, wow. He's like, that escalated really quickly. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't think anything, you know, I don't think I could have changed anything. I was in the process of going to the hospital. Who would have thought, you know, my contractions would go from 15 minutes to 3 to 4 minutes. And then the baby came. I mean, it was just, it happened so quickly. But anyways, we are fine. We are safe. Everything went well. Like I said, I couldn't have asked for a better delivery. We were both perfectly fine. And yeah, so it was kind of an amazing thing. We did end up on the news. If you guys have been following us on Instagram or Twitter, or not Twitter, Facebook, the firefighters came back last week to check on us to see how we were doing. And we took pictures and they put them up on their Facebook page and on Twitter, and then it went viral. So all the local news stations wanted to interview us. So Friday we had a big news day. We went to the station and saw the firefighters again and had an interview. So I will actually leave the links to the video, the news clips in the description below if you guys want to check them out. It was so great. Everybody was amazing. The firefighters are so awesome. And it was kind of really special because for a firefighter, they have a 1% chance of delivering a baby in the field, not necessarily in the ambulance, but actually like showing up and actually delivering a baby. So it was really cool to, you know, be able to do that for them. And the fact that, you know, she was perfectly fine was just great. And we're so happy she's here. So if you have any questions, if I forgot anything, just leave a comment below. And yeah, we're just so happy that she's here.